We are joined today by Killer Mike, a Grammy-winning artist, entrepreneur, and proud father of 4. Beyond his impact in music and culture, he's also been outspoken about parenting and the challenges facing families today. In this conversation, we'll dive into kids, technology, the mental health crisis, and how he navigates it all as a dad in the public eye. We realize that he puts out some content that is definitely not for kids, right? There's a parental advisory explicit situation on some of his albums, which I love and listen to, but also would not play for my children. So I get it. We at Bark help to protect families from all walks of life, right? From all faiths, non-faiths, demographics, belief systems. Like, we help to protect kids, all kids, despite what their families, think and believe, their values, the music they listen to, etc. So anyway, I realize this guest might be a little controversial for some of you, and I want you to know that our goal here is to make sure everyone is aware of what is happening to kids today online, and use the most powerful voices we can to help raise that awareness and inspire action. You know what Killer Mike is really good at? Raising awareness and inspiring action. So with that, let's get into it. Michael, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having me.
Really exciting.
It means the world.
Wow. Same. You have 4 kids.
Yeah.
I know they're pretty much grown.
Yeah. Adults. I just dropped the last one off at Hampton University a few weeks ago.
Wow.
Her name is Michael as well. We call her Mikey.
I love that.
Yeah.
I love that. So you've seen how childhood has changed over the past 15 years.
Yeah.
My son is 16 and a half, and I only have 1. But if I had any more, I would do some things different.
Yeah.
A lot different.
Yeah.
But I would just like to hear how you and your wife, Shay, changed any elements of your parenting between your 4 kids as technology evolved.
Well, Shay got us as a package deal. We kind of, we think she got this guy and 4 kids, and I wouldn't have took the deal, but she did, luckily, So I was raised, and she was raised in a village parenting setup. So her mom and dad divorced, but her dad is from a huge family in South Carolina. They were a landowning family. They're Geechee and Gullah, very traditional in their way. So her mom would send her with her dad's family in summers and stuff. And her mom was a single mom. Her mom's mom was a single mom. She had 2 brothers she grew up with and a younger brother that was also in Savannah by her dad. So, but her and her younger brother got a chance to be in South Carolina with her larger family. My grandparents raised me because my parents were teenagers when I was born.
Yeah.
My grandmother's from Tuskegee, Alabama. My grandfather's from Edenton. So we spent a lot of time in the very rural South too. Even though we were raised in Atlanta, me and my sisters, 2 of my sisters were raised with my grandparents. We spent enough time on a farm to appreciate, the city. So there was a lot of freedom when I was younger. With the Atlanta, I don't know if very many people are familiar, but there was a phenomenon here, a horrible phenomenon called Atlanta Missing and Murdered.
Yes.
So there was a real sense of terror. It was like Pennywise was on the street.
For real, for real.
Yeah, for real. And as a kid, you just felt kind of repressed and even depressed. But there's this weird thing that happened called the crack era. Mm-hmm. And drugs during the Reagan administration flooded the streets, and it started to transform neighborhoods. They weren't immediately blighted with poverty and addiction, but that eventually came. But with the crack era, everything, weirdly enough, opened back up. And kids had this weird freedom that hadn't been experienced with the immediacy of the Atlanta Missing and Murdered. So you would kind of roam in packs. It would be you and 8 or 10 of your friends. You guys would, since we were right off an exit away from Six Flags, you'd ride your bikes all the way to Six Flags and sneak in. You'd hang out in each other's yards. But there was a real village raising in that people were looking out for one another and one another's children because they didn't want children to disappear. So my friends and family all kind of operate like that. So my family never stopped operating like that, period. They were like that from the farm forward, even before the Atlanta, Mississippi murdering children. So my family, on any given day, it was me and my 2 sisters, our 3 boy cousins, our 1 girl cousin, and then any number of 2 or 3 other kids. So my grandparents in their 1,000 square foot house had 7 to 10 kids in their house on a daily basis.
Amazing.
So the little kids would be at the kitchen table. They eat, do homework. The older kids would be in the living room. You eat and do homework. But everyone's focus was on getting your work done. And then you'd watch television together. You do jigsaw puzzles together. But there was a real village. So that just kind of followed us into. So when Shay got us, she got a package. And, my oldest son, Malik, discovered skateboarding at about 9 years old.
Oh, that's so cool.
I was traveling, so I bought him a skateboard and kept him with skateboards and, his truck stuff, the stuff that he needed to be a skater. And that community really in Atlanta's a solid one. Shouts out to, Thomas, formerly of the skate shop that was over in East Atlanta. He have Stratosphere. God bless his dead, and Thomas. His son's a pro skater and skates for Nike, but he provided an environment in that store with kids to be. So my son kind of pulled to that. My middle 2 children are by the same woman, and that's Anaya and Ponyboy. Pony just started trade school this week. And they lived, or their mother was from the same side of town as me, the west side. So there was a lot of family there on both sides. And my youngest daughter, Mikey, who just dropped off at Hampton, her mother was from Buffalo, was the daughter of a school teacher. Her mother went to Morris Brown when I was at Morehouse. But all these kids were raised together. So you wouldn't even know they didn't have the same mother because they have that tight of a connection and communication. And ultimately, as a dad, that was my goal, to make sure that my children had a relationship with one another independent of me. Because my grandparents raised me and my sisters to say, hey, one day we're going to be dead. And you don't want to hear it as a kid. But I was 44. My grandmother was 44 when I was born, and my grandpa was 54. So their whole thing was, we're going to die one day. These people got to know how to take care of each other. And my sisters and I are fierce about loving and taking care of each other to this day. Like my sister just told my daughter the other day, don't ask my brother for any more money. You know what I mean? He's not going to give it to you. And it was interesting because I was going to tell her no. She was like, so you didn't need to. I told her no.
Good.
And being together like that, and with me and my sisters raised by my grandparents, really helped me understand the importance of my kids having a relationship outside of me that's with one another. And it also helped me understand that they needed to have interests that were unique to themselves, that I could love them and cheer for them for. I was their dad. People were already, I was singing and dancing. People were already loving and liking me for whatever reason, but I was adamant about trying to find, what do you like so I can support you in it. So whether it was early on dance and cheer with Anaya, and later on makeup and things of that nature, and with Ponyboy, with sports, and with Mikey, she was just brilliant. She showed me God has a sense of humor. Like, he'll give you as a girl, and they argue better. You know what I mean? So I've spent my life now trying to. I remember telling all of them, like, I didn't know what I was doing. So let me qualify that. I'm a parent, but we're just kind of raising each other. There was a lady named Miss Ann who used to have Miss Ann's snack bar, best burgers in Atlanta and Kirkwood. I remember me and Malik walked in. Malik might have been about 13 years old. And she looked at me and she looked at Malik. And she looked at me and she looked at Malik. And she says, that's your son? I was like, yeah, he's just a light-skinned version of me. And she said, shit, y'all just raising each other. Because I was such a young father. And she was just, it was amazing because she was so correct in that. Like, I told the older ones, like, I didn't know what I was doing. And not that I did anything bad or terrible, just I didn't know. So if I made some mistakes, forgive me for the mistakes. I'll re-up when y'all have kids, but I didn't know what I was doing. I just did my very best. But I understand that can lead to great parenting too, because my grandmother had 2 parents raised on a farm with her mother and father, whose both of their names was on the deed to the land, which I'm really proud of because that counteracts a lot of stories of women not having rights. On the deed of our family, the Blackman and Mackey farm, both names are on there. She was raised with 8 siblings. It was I think it was 7 girls, 2 boys. So she had a very stable life, and she brought that. You couldn't compliment my grandmother without complimenting her husband. If you said, Miss Betty, your food was great, she'd say, well, go thank your grandfather because he bought it. So I learned balance and fairness and partnership. So I learned in my marriage, I wanted to have a marriage like my grandparents. Yes. But in matters of my grandfather, his father abandoned him when he was 2nd, 3rd grade. He had to drop out of school, work in a sawmill, support his 2 sisters and his mother. And he in his life had a very tough life, had been very cold at points, but he was never like that to us. To us, he was, you'd walk in the bedroom and my sisters, he was a fair-skinned man with curly hair. And my sisters would have barrettes all in his hair. And he was the sweetest man. And this is the same man who his friends would say, you know, your grandpa, if you got wrong, he'd kill you. You know, I mean, it was just that simple. He was a shine runner in his day, and he and his brother-in-law and his cousins could throw some fits. But he was he spanked me once, and he cried harder than I did. You know, but the same man, his father, when he landed in Atlanta from Eatonton, his father approached him. And it was the man told the story of his funeral. His man said a man walked up to him and said, "Hey, what's your name?" Boy, he says, "My name's Willie Burke Sherwood." He say, "Well, stand up and greet me. I'm your father." He said, "If you ever say that to me again, I'll kill you." Oh. Because he had abandoned him. And my grandfather, that abandonment, though, caused my grandfather to be the best father to us he could be. He had been married prior to my grandmother. His other grandchildren, all of us were just there on a big pallet on the floor in the living room. We're still, our cousins, I remember him telling us, his kids, you don't need friends. That's what you got cousins for. My cousins, we still talk to this day. We still hang to this day. So I just, I was glad that Shay took the package deal. With each child, it's been a little different. With Malik, I was gone so much because I was pursuing rap. With Anaya and Pony, I was gone a lot. With Michael, I got to be there all the way through. Not that I was absent when I was home. It was just
you're working.
I was working. Yeah. But I'm glad in that their mothers have always championed me for that. Like, your father works, and you're to respect that. Your father takes care of you.
100%.
And you're to respect that. And so I've been blessed with the women I've had children with. I've been blessed with the family unit that I've come up in, and I've been blessed to have some very understanding children.
That's awesome. Yeah. How have you observed or potentially struggled with screen time, your kids wanting Snapchat or Instagram? Do you have any thoughts around like tech and social media and its impact on kids?
Well, I'm not very tech savvy. So with Michael, we waited. I don't think she got a phone. Maybe she was 12.
Okay.
So we waited for her to get a phone. Malik is 31 years old now. So it wasn't as big as a deal to him. And he skates. So he never cared. He cared about video. He liked video games, but he never cared to sit in front of a phone. He wanted to be outside. And Pony enjoyed outside. He got into video games later, so his screen interest was video games. Anaya is probably my tech kid. She likes arguing on the internet. She knows which new apps are. She shows me. But I never got into it enough to monitor them heavily. What I monitored was their behavior and their morality.
Okay.
Is my daughter a good moral person? Does my daughter have integrity? Because whether you're on screen or not, those things are going to come through. And what the screen allows you to do sometimes is, I found my dad's Playboy books. I'm sure my boys found porn sites before. I got a call from their mother. He's locked himself in the bathroom. Ooh. So I figure, oh, yeah, he's found a porn site. But, I remember, having to have a talk with them like, hey, man, what are you doing? What's going on sexually? Like, I remember sitting them down like, who's having sex? I would like to know on the first hand, because I just cut the BS with my kids.
No surprises.
No surprise. Just let me know, because if you let me know, I'm gonna adjust. We're gonna do that. I'm not going to try to make you something you aren't. I'm gonna accept you as you are, and we're gonna get on the pathway to the best version of that you can be. And usually they just be embarrassed, but I'm like, no, I'm serious. Like, just what in the outside world is influencing you. So Anaya engages me the most in terms of, Dad, this is what I heard on, say, like a Clubhouse. What do you think of this? And I'm glad that she engages me, because it shows that the years of trust building with her have worked. Girls are interesting in that they could be a lot like their fathers, which either puts them in league with their fathers and trusting them, or puts them at odds with their fathers and arguing. Anaya and I have been on both sides of the coin. But I really have been in league with her more than not, and trying to understand and trying to help her understand. So she's the person that's probably gotten the most screen time. She's the person that probably focuses more on the screen than not. And Michael got into it late. Like, Michael has had a IG forever, and I'm sure all the other stuff, but forever she just didn't say much on it. And so I figured she got two. I told her, I don't know what your other one is, but this one's pretty lame. And then finally, when she graduated high school, she started putting stuff up. So now she's at Hampton. I get to see her, via that. I call her a lot FaceTime, some probably too much. But she called me, interestingly enough, yesterday. She's in the cafeteria with her friends, and they're talking about the drug era. And I'm like, what? She's like, yeah. She was like, I'm talking to my friends, about it. And she said, what did my grandmother Niecy do? And I was like, well, your grandmother was a major cocaine trafficker in the 80s.
Right.
Small
But
business.
there was no fentanyl back then.
Yeah, I was like, your mother trafficked. I'm just like, Mom, why am I saying this to you as a college freshman? But you know, our family experience had brought her grandfather ran shine, her mother trafficked, and so I'm just like, but it's interesting that she's learning these things from a computer, but she has the ability to FaceTime her dad and be like, so you were 15 when your mother was picked up attempting to buy 20 kilos of cocaine in Griffin, Georgia. And I'm just like, yeah, that was the truth.
Could have just asked me.
Yep. But she's the interesting one because I didn't know, she didn't get girly on me until her last year of high school. Like I just had a little cool little tomboy. Like that was my dog, you know, like we hung out. We did daddy-daughter lunches and we went to very boyish type stuff. And then I'm like, is that blush? Yeah, my sister taught me how to put it on. And like, why are your breasts out? You know what I mean? Like,
cover
like
up.
What? Yeah. And or I would come to her house and she would disappear, come back with a sweatshirt on. Then I realized, oh, I got a girl. Like she's a girl.
Yeah.
So her screen time, her mother, you know, Muffy, shouts out to Muffy, really limited it.
Okay.
And she had a very strong friend group, whether it was Morgan or Mackenzie, you know, Gabby and Grace. They spent so much time together that the screen time was minimized by the fact they were in person. And that's something I've always encouraged with all my kids.
Yes. The more time children can spend with each other in real life,
Yes.
building those connections, experiencing
Yes.
tension, but
Yep.
building resilience, it's so much better than shooting off texts.
Yeah, it is. It is.
I want to read some stats to you we do an annual report. So at Bark Technologies, we help to protect over 7.5 million children across the nation.
Okay.
We have a safer smartphone for kids, safer smartwatch. We have an app. And every day we're alerting families to kids that are struggling with suicidal ideation or if predators are messaging your kids, you know, some pretty heavy, hard stuff. And I just want your take because you are such an outspoken advocate for what's right, for common sense, for giving a voice to those who haven't had a voice.
Amen.
And so I want to know if does this surprise you? Does this check out with you, etc.? So there's 9 buckets that we did a report on.
Okay.
First is self-harm and suicide. So suicide is the second leading cause of death in children in the United States right now.
Yeah.
37% of tweens and 60% of teens were involved in a self-harm or suicidal situation just last year.
Yeah.
Tweens, kids 8 to 12.
Yeah.
So there's that. Sexual content. I know you referenced reading the articles in Playboy, not just for the picture.
No,
you
were
reading
article,
it.
yeah.
You know, my first exposure to nude people that like weren't my parents changing in the house was also a Playboy magazine, but that was it. And it was like at a friend's house under a mattress. I didn't have porn in my pocket.
Yeah.
But 63% of tweens, 77% of teens encountered nudity or content of a sexual nature.
Yeah.
There's anxiety, there's drugs and alcohol, and again, you know, there's no secret about your interaction with and use of drugs that are, you know, legal and maybe used to be illegal.
Yeah.
But it's just different now. When we were partying, we didn't have to worry about fentanyl in our drugs, and that's a really, really scary thing that parents need to be aware of. Bullying is off the charts.
Yeah.
Off the charts. Depression, disordered eating, like the algorithms that kids are seeing on YouTube and TikTok make them think that they're not enough.
Yeah.
The filters, it's too much. Predators, 4% of tweens, 7% of teens encountered predatory behaviors from someone online.
Wow.
And then lastly is violence, which we all know we've got, you know, a major problem with school shootings. But anyway, hearing all of that and being the voice that you are for reason and strength, just anything that you want to riff on.
I mean, it doesn't surprise me, any of the numbers. And we just got to get back. God bless our parents. They tried to do, they spoiled us a little. We overspoiled our kids a lot. But we almost have to get back to the mentality of our grandparents.
Yes.
And that's to go outside. Leave your phone inside and go outside. That's the being comfortable with not knowing where the group of kids that were just in your yard are for 5-6 hours, because kids need that opportunity to go find themselves. Like,
Yes.
you want to end bullying, time to put kids in boxing, because no one wants to fight anything that wants to fight back. You get what I'm saying? Like, I'm not saying that violence is always the option, but to be peaceful because you can't fight is not being peaceful. It's being weak. Being peaceful because you could kick this bully's ass, but this is not the right time to do it because we're in the middle of a math test, gives you a sense of control and discipline that you deserve. So there's few people online that I like. There's a brother who's a martial arts guy, gray beard, but I love what he does with young men, with what he and he puts them. I love what this beautiful little black girl who studies jiu-jitsu, who's just kicking boys' ass. You've seen her online. Like, I love the fact that so many fathers are involved in martial arts and combative sports with their children, because it gives you a bonding time with your children, and it also gives your children a certain confidence that they need.
Just having physical activity.
Yes.
One of my favorite Instagram accounts is Physiology First, and it talks about the fact that humans aren't meant to be sedentary all day long.
No.
And certainly children who are stuck in school just sitting.
Yep.
They need to move their body. They need to get in playground fights.
Absolutely.
They need to build resilience.
Absolutely. One of my friend I love, and I'll love for the rest of my life, 1995 NCAA champion with UCLA, is Cameron Dollar. Me and Cameron Dollar were both chubby. We went to Collier Heights Elementary. His father was the basketball coach at Frederick Douglass High School. His brother Chad went on to play basketball. Cam and Chad were so competitive. Their father was so competitive. Me and Cam hated each other for a year. I don't even know why. But that competition and this great fight we had on the top field one day changed me in the best of ways. And anytime I land in Seattle now, I call Cam, hey, I got a show if you'd like to come out, because he made me tougher. And he took basketball so serious that he helped me understand that I don't really care about basketball. I'm taking rap this seriously, because I would get on his nerves being lazy on the court. I would get on his nerves not fighting and digging for the ball. And eventually, Cam's mother had died when he was young. So I grew to understand that he had carried just some pain. I was really close to my mother. My mother would bring me to school. So I'm just like, who knows what reason me and Cam had to be at it. But because we were at it, we became better friends once we became friends. And I needed that rivalry. Steel sharpens steel.
Yes.
So, I would like to encourage people, bullying is wrong, but I'm not going to say bullying is going to stop. But what can stop bullying is a confident child. That doesn't mean your kid even has to fight. It just means I'm confident enough to understand that a bully may have something wrong that doesn't need to be addressed by me or fixed with physicality now, but I need to be able to handle myself. In terms of predators, because of the Atlanta missing murder, it forced parents to have real conversations with their kids a lot younger here, to say, hey, this is what you should do when a stranger approaches you. This is what is allowed. I can remember getting those talks about, don't let people touch your posterior. Let me know if someone touches your private parts.
Yep.
And we were better for that, I believe. We have gotten in such protection mode with children. We try to protect them from the harsh realities that are out there. Well, my grandfather, we would fish, we would hunt. And so there are certain realities you can't protect the child from. This is the difference between a garden snake and a cottonmouth. This is what you do if you see a coyote. And your grandfather has to have those conversations. So it made it a lot easier for him to say, don't let anybody touch your private parts, and if so, you come tell me. We have to. It matters with suicide. I remember when suicide was darn near a non-option in the black community. It was like you were expected to push through and endure. And I'm not saying that was right, because my mother attempted suicide in front of me and my sisters, weirdly enough.
Wow. She
cut both her. She was arguing with my sister Lovey. She split both her arms. And I remember, when the police got there, compressing her arms till the police got there. She didn't know at the time she was undiagnosed with manic depression and bipolarism. And I can remember my grandmother had fought for years, because my grandmother could tell something was wrong or off about my mom. And I remember at that time, you could still, the state could hold them. Wasn't immediate release. I remember my mom being there and saying, look, Mom, I just snapped. I'm sorry. You got to sign me out of here. And my grandmother looked happy as if she ever been. She's like, nope, you're going to stay. We're going to. And there's this picture of my grandmother just sitting there smiling and my mom just leaning on her, just looking pitiful. And my grandmother was happy, because my grandmother wanted to her daughter to understand what it was. And after that, my mother got a better grip on how to handle her moments of mania, how to know when she was going into depression. But around suicide with children, their exposure to that screen is one of the most evil things, because it forces them to compare their life to everyone else, and these lives aren't real.
No.
They're lives that are contrived. They're TV shows that are being made. One of the worst things you can do if you do not want to be joy-filled is compare your life to others. But we as parents are trapped in that trap too.
100%.
And we aren't being honest with our children about that. We're competing with our brother-in-law and sister-in-law. We're letting ourselves be competitors with our cousins and brothers and sisters in ways that we shouldn't be. We should be able to tell our kids, well, I'm just not very good at that. My brother's better at that. So you should talk to your uncle about that. Or, man, I really would like one of those purses, but I can't afford those purses. So maybe one day. But what we're going to do today is we're going to go have a great day. You know, we need to start admitting to our kids that we fear, that we fail. You know, I'm very quick to tell my children to try to give them good advice. But as the last 4 or 5 years, especially, I've told them, you know, most of the advice I give you is from failures I've had.
Wow.
And they're like, what? I said, yeah. I said, man, I said, up a lot.
Same.
And I say, because I a lot, when I give you some advice, I just don't want to see you make the same. I need you to go create new ups so that your children may learn from yours. You know what I mean? But I don't want you to make the same up. So I'm usually warning you from a place of failure versus triumph. I have not always gotten it right. And I think that we as parents need to be human. You know, we need to toughen up like our grandparents, but we do need to take the sensitivity of our parents, but be honest in it. You know,
you absolutely nailed it. I released a book this year called Parental Control, which is tongue in cheek, because you're like, nobody is ever fully in control of anything.
Yeah. Once they get 12, they're out. They're little savages. You know, you're just trying your best to keep up with them.
But in the book, which I have one for you off camera, make sure you go home with it. But that's what I talk about, is all the mistakes I made with my son Jackson. Yeah. I let him have a smartphone too soon. I let him play video games way too much. I let him have the PS5 in his bedroom. So many mistakes I made. And when I'm preaching to parents, it's please don't make the same mistakes I did. I'm not judging you. I just want to help your family avoid the same pain that we went through.
Yeah.
And I get social media. I'm a social media native. I've spent my career at the intersection of parenting and tech, and I still made those mistakes. Yeah. So I love what you said. Being authentic with your kids. Here's where I messed up.
Yeah.
Please don't do the same thing that I did. And when you do mess up, you can come to me.
Yeah.
I'm not going to freak out.
Yeah.
I'm not going to yell at you. I'm not going to take a hammer and smash your iPad, which I have wanted to do, by the way.
Yeah.
I'm going to remain calm. We're going to navigate this together.
Yeah.
And it doesn't mean that there aren't going to be ramifications for bad choices. There's going to be consequences. Yeah. But I've got your back.
Yeah.
So I'm glad
you gave him a great name.
Jackson.
Yeah.
Thank you. Jackson Jordan.
My kids know I might say and that's you know.
That's the sign?
Yeah. Like if I give you a it's a real bad mess up. But we're in it together.
So you're highly lauded for your musical, rapping, producing, creative talents, as well as your political activism. But I don't think a lot of people tap into you for parenting advice. So as we get close to rapping, not the kind that you do, but, you know, LOL. What would you say are some of your top tips for parents out there, because you've got 4 kids?
So my grandmother made sure the boys and girls knew how to do the same stuff. So as a boy, I can cook, I can clean, I can sew a button on a shirt. Right? I'm not the best cooker, not the best cleaner, but I do sew a damn good button on a shirt. My grandfather made sure, and they both made sure, that we all knew how to do yard work. So my sisters and I. My sister Lovey, who's the wilder one who liked to party and stuff, is the best gardener of us all. They made sure that we could all change a tire, knew how to, change a fluid, or knew how to do it so you can watch somebody else, make sure they're not cheating you. They made sure we fished and things like that. So they got us outdoors. They were always open to be honest with us. So always make sure you wanted to hear what they were going to say if you asked, because they want to simply tell you the truth. And it was cut and dry with them. My grandfather gave me a set of instructions. Take care of you and your sisters. Take care of yourself first, because you can't take care of yourself, anyone else, if you don't take care of yourself. Take care of your sisters, because that's your immediate support group. So you guys are more than just siblings. You guys are each other's support group. Secondly, don't embarrass me and your mama's name. The family name, do not embarrass, meaning live with integrity and in a way where if I come somewhere right after you leave, that our name is as good as the day I got there. And then don't embarrass, and he would say, my grandpa would say, colored folks. What he was essentially saying was, don't be an embarrassment to your culture, your tribe. If you're Arabic, if you're Jewish, if you're American, if you're white, whatever your group is, the group you've been assigned through birth, you had you didn't have any choice. Meaning, I'm here, I'm Japanese American. Don't embarrass them. Be of credit to them. Be of good to them. I'm an American. My job is to make sure when I go to Paris, I'm not the typical asshole.
Oh,
you know what I mean?
Right.
Because, boy, we got a bad reputation in Europe, Americans.
Yeah, we do.
You know what I mean? We ask for extra ice. We complain about the seasoning in the food. And we don't speak other languages. We tend to expect everyone to speak English. So my grandfather gave me some solid advice in that. I would say develop a, not friendship, but a kinship with your children, in that we're both humans and we're just figuring this out.
I love that.
It's not a friendship. We'll grow to be friends when we get to be adults, but a kinship that I don't have all the answers, but we can figure them out together.
And we need to have mutual respect.
Absolutely.
This isn't going to work unless we have that.
Absolutely. My Mikey called me about a month ago. She didn't like something I put up on my IG. I'm like, what are you talking about? Just, what are you even following me for? Well, I just don't like the digital footprint it leaves.
Oh.
I was like, I don't even know what a digital footprint is. Well, it's when people can trace what you've posted, and I just don't like that. And we had a discussion, and then she said, thank you for always being willing to hear me out.
Wow, I love that.
And I was like, it worked. I mean, I took it down.
Good.
I was like, she's an asshole, but with that said, I was like, all right, you get that one. Anaya and I would have debates, and that's when I realized God had a sense of humor. He gave you with breast. Like, she's a girl. She has her view of the world, very feminine based view, but she argues her points well. And so I've had to digress on a few arguments, but God definitely has a sense of humor.
I think so too.
Yeah. And I've learned that, I would say, parents, it's time to, especially boys, it's time to put them back outside again.
Yes.
Boys need to burn off the energy, and then they'll listen. But you can't just have a boy. There's a old cowboy, Hannah, and he does a spiel where he talks about just boys need to be outside playing till they're almost exhausted. You got to let your boys get back outside. You got to let your boys, Malik, like I said, one of the greatest things, they diagnosed my son with ADHD, said our son was on the spectrum, and me and his mom were like, we're not going to, the medicine we didn't like it. We didn't like what it turned our son into. I'm not saying against anyone else that it may have worked for, but we took red dye out. We changed some stuff about his diet, took him off the meds, and just let him skate until he was a sweaty, tired mess. And he did that to the point where he got hit by a car the day before graduation of high school. And he left the hospital bruised and still made the graduation. But it had not been for skating and his being able to exhaust all the extra energy. If it had not been for skating and the camaraderie he built with skaters, I don't think my son would have graduated high school and went on to matriculate into adulthood as a decent, upstanding man, because he just was so bound.
Got to move your body.
Energy. Yeah.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
Is there anything else that you'd like to say before we wrap? Anything we didn't touch on?
Oh man, just there's good in all of us. There's absolute good in all of us. And redemption is possible even in the worst of us, and even in us on the worst of our days. So reassure yourself. And if you're looking for God, look in the mirror. It's in there somewhere.
Michael, thank you so much.
I appreciate you so much.